Hello again, everyone. Ambassador Terry, along with a couple of friends and colleagues, and we're going to talk about successful engagement etiquette. Now, I'm going to bring on the person who is responsible for having this to start off. Carol King did a tremendous release of frustration on a LinkedIn post and started this whole conversation off. Carol, first of all, welcome. I'm glad that you were able to make it today. And perhaps you can just kind of tell us a little bit about the background of that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And good morning. And thank you for all joining us. Thanks, Terry. Thank you, Ambassador Lisa Gable. Great to always connect here and really appreciated the opportunity. I'm Carol Kim. I'm the founder and principal of Shasta Advisory, doing a lot of advisory work with CEOs and tech startup founders. And the LinkedIn post that you referenced, Terry, as you know, it was based on a true real life event I had where, LinkedIn is an amazing platform. It brings together a stellar group of, leaders, business people, builders, and you're just really bringing a community where, it does give you an opportunity to reach out directly and connect with folks. And part of my experience on LinkedIn was that I had a tech startup founders who sent me a direct message asking to connect with me. And, what I love the most is always connecting up with tech startup founders and business leaders who are really trying to solve for hard problems, particularly in healthcare. And so, of course, I obliged, and only to my shock and surprise that the founder did not show up to the meeting. Not only did the founder not show up, but sent someone else in her stead, and that person was really clueless as to the purpose of the meeting. And it was an interesting experience, and I won't get into it. You can read it on the post. But here are some three key, suggestions that, I made for anyone who is thinking about requesting a meeting, how they show up. And this was really based on, my years of, quite frankly, practice of working with many policymakers and CEOs and key decision makers in terms of how you plan and how you show up to meetings. First is always be respectful of their time. Understand that CEOs and executive leaders are extremely busy individuals. And when you request their time, please be clear and concise on the purpose of the meeting. I would say number two, prepare thoroughly. It requires planning and preparation. Again, show that you value their time and their expertise and their willingness to meet with you. So prepare for the meeting, right? Do the background research about the individual, about the organization that they're affiliated with, what some of their current projects may be. And also, it can really become like a conversation starter when you do that background preparation work. And thirdly, I would say always communicate professionally, right? When communicating with a CEO or executive leader, always maintain a professional tone. And in this case, in my personal experience with the tech startup founder, look, I understand life happens, things happen, emergencies come up, and you might need to reschedule. Be courteous, be professional, communicate, and say something like, my sincerest apology, something came up. I really want to meet with you, but I do need to reschedule. Please provide some dates and times at your earliest convenience to meet with me. So again, be thoughtful, be respectful, and communicate effectively. So those are some of my tips, and I would love to hear, Lisa, your thoughts on this.
Yeah, Carol, you did a great job giving an overview as to basic standards and protocols that you need to consider when you're engaging, whether it's in LinkedIn or WhatsApp or via email. Today, we are working in a manner where we don't necessarily meet people, but that doesn't mean that we leave those standard protocols by the wayside. One of the things I keyed in on when you were speaking is an appropriate way of approaching a conversation. We who are on this currently are people who have achieved a certain level of experience in life. we're older. We have a lot of people who are contacting us and asking for time on our calendars. And so I think you have to recognize where the person is at when you are approaching them. Nothing drives me more crazy than when I get an email or a LinkedIn message or a digital message that says, "Hey, really? Hey?" It startles me. And then they go into this very colloquial, "Oh, we need to get together. I look so forward to chatting with you. There are all these important things I want to talk about." It's like, well, no. What I like is, "Dear Lisa, I would like to meet with you because I noticed that you had spoken on this topic. It's of great interest to me. The reason it's of interest to me is that I'm looking for a job in that area. I'm just looking for a little advice as I'm trying to evaluate what direction I'm going." Giving a normal setup for how you would approach someone is always important. And I do go with a level of formality as opposed to familiarity, which isn't something you can actually automatically assume. I do recognize I grew up in the age where we still called people Mr. and Mrs. later in life if we didn't really know them personally, or doctor or ambassador. That seems to have gone to the wayside. But the level of respect, both as you said, from doing your homework in advance, and then the way in which you approach the conversation, because why would I set up time on my calendar if I don't know what you want to talk about? I know thousands of people, and I appreciate that somebody wants to get to know me, but at the same time, I want to understand what it is that they need from me.
Very good. Very good. There's going to be two more I'd like to mention, two more people on here. Last minute corporate changes to the schedule for those of us who have been and who are still. That happens, and this is live. So, you just can't tape it and bring it out another day. So our best to Melissa Cohen and to Eugenia Jordan. Couldn't make it here last minute, and we understand. Okay. And, to tag on to Lisa, what you were talking about, I run a corporation that has to do with a process, a sequence that finds and stops the drivers behind repetitive behaviors, PTSD, and all those kinds of things. And I was set up to meet a research team in the government. We won't go into details. And they put me off for 2 months. I go, okay, well, it's government. I get it. The sad part about it reflects exactly what we're talking about here. The team got on board with me. Now, there's everything for this project has already been submitted. This was the follow-up meeting for next steps. All three people didn't know what the meeting was for, and they wanted me to start over on what my project was and all those kinds of things. And I only had 15 minutes for this conversation. I was livid. You put me off for two months, and you don't even have enough respect to casually look over even the white paper, let alone the research project application, right? That is just not acceptable. And I reached out to their superiors and I said, I work hard out here and my time is valuable too. I waited for 2 months and this is the way it ended up. Perhaps you can have a conversation with those guys. And this kind of stuff happens a lot. Since the last 3 weeks or so that we put this on, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are listening live, thank you very much for doing so. And those of you who are going to listen to this recorded, far too often, and we won't get into Gen Z and all of that kind of stuff, younger people who are first coming into the workforce are not given the basic rules for engagement and how to be successful at their job. Just go out there, pick that phone up and go, dial, right? Well, that's not true. Like Carol, you made a really good point in your post where somebody, and this happens to me a lot, somebody will set up on my time trade 15-minute interview for something and not show up. So I'm sitting around for that 15 minutes, plus I'm being respectful of my time as well. And there's nobody there and no follow up, no excuse me, I'm sorry, nothing, just ghosted. That's not acceptable, ladies and gentlemen. Please understand that even though the three of us are here on screen, we're real live people and we're having a real live conversation. The only thing that's different from the three of us being in the same room, we didn't start out with a handshake, okay? We started out with a hi, how are you? And that is utmost importance. Value your time, number one, and value the time of the person that's involved in this. You're going to start out on the right foot with somebody just by being conversational. Relationship marketing is powerful in the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen. So, Carol, got another step? You got a lot to say in that post.
Yeah, no. I mean, you made so many great points, Terry. And in listening to you, another practice, right, that I certainly have employed throughout my career, and I know many others have as well, is that, perhaps a day or two in advance of the meeting that you will be showing up to. And especially if you are the one who has requested the meeting and put it on the calendar. It's always helpful to perhaps send a short, email message, right, to say, Terry, thanks again for making the time. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, tomorrow or Friday or whatever day of the week you're having the conversation, and say, in advance of the meeting, here is an agenda, or, here is a copy of the deck that I'd like to walk you through. And really looking forward to having a conversation with you on X, Y, or Z, right? And please let me know, if you need any additional information or you'd like to connect beforehand, right? Because it does couple things, right? When you send that type of message 1 or 2 days in advance of the actual meeting, one, you're actually confirming the meeting for the person, right? You're reminding them, we're getting together on this day and time. 2, you're getting very clear, even for yourself, as to what your objective is going into that conversation. And 3, you hope that by the end of that conversation, you will get the outcomes in which you were hoping for. And maybe perhaps if you're not going to entirely get the objective, done by the end of the meeting, at least you have an opportunity to say, let's talk about next steps. Maybe there's a continued conversation, on a go forward basis. So that is the other offering that I would make.
Yeah, right on. I have a time trade platform that sends out an email 24 hours in advance, gives them a freebie to respond with a note saying, yes, looking forward to seeing you, whatever, just like what you were saying, Carol. Sorry, Lisa, hop in.
Yeah, there are a couple of tricks that I've learned along the way because I do get inundated with a lot of requests for meetings, and I always have. It's just the nature of the work I do and the network that I have. And it's hard for me to remember why I'm meeting with somebody, going to be honest with you. And so what I did with my former chief of staff is at the top of my calendar, I would put who I was meeting with that day and why they contacted me, right? What the purpose of the meeting is, who introduced me to them. And then in my Outlook, I also try to do that. So in the notes in my Outlook, I'll put in who introduced me to the person, what we're talking about, and notes based on previous conversations that we've had. And what that does for me is I'm the worst at remembering names sometimes, but I'm really great at remembering the details. Like I remember they went to Harvard Business School in 1989. I remember that so-and-so introduced them to me. And one difficult thing about LinkedIn is it actually does not allow you to figure out when you made the connection with somebody. It's one thing I would tell the platform, please change. Like, tell us when we met the person, because I'll remember, be like, oh, I was at the Milken conference in October of 2021. And I know I met somebody, but I can't remember. And I'm doing all these searches. This little tip that I now have, this trick that I do by putting in little notations that I can do in the search function of my Outlook, or that I can do on my calendar. Then if it's 3 weeks later, I'm getting ready to go on a big trip, and I've just requested a meeting from 3 philanthropists about a new project that I'm interested in. So what I'm going to do is the top of my calendar, I have a little reminder who the philanthropist is, what it is that the person who introduced me to wanted me to talk to them about, and then a few reminders on things I wanted to talk to them about, because we forget. We're human, we forget. And so think through all the tips of what you can do to make yourself more effective, both as the recipient of request, but also as somebody who's making a request.
You know, Lisa, I love that tip. I really do. I would even, and it made me think about the one more step, right? We're thinking about how to prepare going into a meeting, into a conversation, but also don't forget there's a follow-up opportunity, right? And the follow-up being including a thank you note, right? You send a thank you note, thanking them for their time, maybe briefly mention how much you enjoyed, X, Y, or Z topic. And if there are some follow-up steps, right, you include that. I mean, I will tell you, maybe I'm old-fashioned, old school, but I'm a firm believer of please and thank you goes a long way.
And another way, because we're on digital, and Terry, you are the best at this, so I'll let you take it from after I state it, which is begin engaging with that person online. The best way to remind somebody that you exist is by making thoughtful comments on their LinkedIn's after you met. There's a gentleman by the name of Kevin who lives in Africa, and he's an executive coach, and he asked to meet with me, and he was extremely clear as to why he wanted to meet. And so I was thrilled to take the opportunity to help this young guy who was launching his business. He now comments regularly on my posts, and sometimes he sends me links to his posts that he knows will be of interest to me and that I'll be able to add to the conversation. You're building a relationship, and Terry, you are the best at that.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I teach it to my coaching and mentoring clients. Engagement is everything. I'll give you a really good example. I did a article a number of months ago on when you're trying to get to somebody that you can't get to. Okay, you find them in LinkedIn, you follow them, you look at their posts, and if you can make valid, relevant comments, do so. React appropriately. If you really liked it, celebrate. If it was insightful. If you just liked it, don't comment. Okay. Anybody can automatic like. Okay. And they're not going to look at it. I don't pay any attention to likes. I pay attention to responses. If I have something that shouldn't solicit a heart, but I get one, I go down and see if they've made a comment because I want to know what they loved about it. Okay. And usually there is something there. And those kinds of comments do raise you up on the algorithm scale a little bit because those reactions fall into a different category than like. And so that's important. And it works wonderfully because you've already started a dialogue with this person before you've actually reached out to them and said, I've been following you for a while. And I really like the stuff that you put out and or like your comments. And if you're open, I'd like to have a conversation, just 15 minutes or so. I'll have the timer on. And when I get on with that 15-minute conversation, I have the timer on. I value their time. And when we get close to the 15-minute mark, I've got to wrap this up because I told you we were going to be here for 15 minutes and I want to honor that. However, I think we've got something going here. I'd like to schedule another meeting. And usually they're open to it. Okay. So those are important as well. And, people who do that with me, when they do ask me for something like, do you know somebody who I really enjoy following you and I hold you in high respect. Do you happen to know somebody who? Because my wife and business partner and I have a really good reputation out here. We'll go see Terry and Linda because if they don't know, I'll bet you they know who to know, and that's how that kind of stuff begins. So when somebody does that type of connection with me, they send me a request for something, I'll try and honor it because they put some time in connecting with me. I'll throw that right back at them in a positive way. Carol, you started to say something, I think.
No, I mean, I'm just listening to you, and that's exactly right, right? I think what's really incredible in this day and age, right, with the online communities, whether it's LinkedIn or any other platform, is that you really can build genuine connections with people, right, from literally all over the world, right? And I think it's always also important to remember that that we are trying to build a community of giving, a community of learning, and a community of service, right? And that takes time, and it takes really intentional, genuine relationship building. So that, to your point, Terry, when folks are reaching out to you and saying, would you happen to know this person or that person or someone in this particular field or arena, and your willingness and your generosity to facilitate that introduction, I think the person also has to remember that when you, Terry, you are willing to make that introduction, in many ways, you are endorsing that person, right? You're putting your brand and your relationships, right, online, so to speak, right? And so I think we always have to be mindful that it's not just how we're showing up to you, but it's also how we're showing up to the people who are connected with you.
Absolutely. And, we don't have them on today because they had last minute challenges with Melissa Cohen and Eugenia Jordan. But I would recommend anybody who is on here who doesn't follow them to follow them, because one thing that they are focused on is building a community of trust and credibility. And so what you'll see with Melissa is that she regularly highlights the positive things that other people have said on their post. So she doesn't talk about herself. She talks about other people, and she'll give someone's best quote of the week that helps drive the conversation forward. Eugenia does a great job of doing call outs about the background of other people that she's met through the LinkedIn process and the relationship building process, because we see one element of the surface of the individual who presents themselves through this professional network. And yet there's so much more behind each of these individuals, especially as we know here in the United States, this vast immigrant community of people who have come here from all over the world, who are now engaged in professional activities in the United States. They don't leave their culture behind. And so one of the things that I think has been beautiful about this process is through people like Eugenia, through other friends of Carol's and mine, they reintroduce the cultural aspects. And why it's important is then it helps you as you're doing what we're suggesting today. If you understand where they're coming from culturally, it will be better for you then to be able to set up a conversation with them within the context of which they would like to be approached.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Really on point. I have a lot of connections across social media that have become very dear and close friends. And we've never shaken hands. Maybe we will at some point, but they're all over the world. So are my clients. They're in 17 countries. So I'm not worried about that because I've connected here in such a way that if somebody does come to me, Lisa sent me to you because you might know something. Absolutely. Lisa sends them. They have credentials, and I'll do what I can do for them. Okay. And it's the same thing as if all three of us were in a corporate office somewhere, and you drop by and you knock on the door and say, Carol sent me over. Do you got a minute? I have something, and Carol suggested that you might have some input for it. Yeah, sure. Carol sent you over. Hop in. We'll say, I can't. I've got 5 minutes. I'll tell you what. Come back in 10 minutes. And if I can't get out of the office, I'll walk out of the office, and you can walk with me down to the elevator and ask me what you do. That's a whole shift in what's going on. You don't reach over and say, I'd like to talk to you in 20 minutes and then not show up. Because now the person has stopped what they're doing to expect you to walk in the door, and you don't. Don't call them again. they're sitting there hoping that you're safe and well. Because if you are safe and well, you're done. But if something happened and you're courteous and relevant enough to say, I can't make it, something just came up, I'm really, really sorry, I'll call you back when I can get time to reschedule. Boom, I'm on it. And I'm loving that conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to keep it short today. We have to bust out of here by the bottom of the hour. And this was exactly what I thought it would be. Carol, Lisa, fantastic. Thank you both for doing this with me. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you from all over the world, from what I'm seeing here, for stepping in and saying hi, and leave some more comments afterwards. I'm going to be watching for them. And Carol, Lisa, do you have some final comments before we step out?
I do not. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, and for bringing us together. And one would have hoped that we don't have to talk about this topic in 2024, but apparently we do. So thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Same for me, Terry. Thanks for bringing this to Carol. Carol, thank you for really generating the original idea and laying it out with such clarity that for a lot of us, the light bulbs went on, and we recognized that maybe the intricate nature of being gracious and diplomatic relationships online needed a little reminder. So thanks for kicking this off.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much. And tell people about us. Show off that recording. This was a great conversation. Bye for now.
Bye.